This is the Next Best Picture podcast. I'm Giovanni Lago, and I have the honor of being joined by one of our most important filmmakers, the director and writer of The Shrouds, David Cronenberg. Thank you so much for joining, David.
Hey, my pleasure. Happy to be here.
Do you think with our society now and how we've become so dependent on technology, it's embedded in everything with social media to just how we communicate with one another, do you think that is and essentially in a way robbed us of the ability to grieve?
I really don't think so. I mean, the grief is just such an intensely potent experience, and it's you have to realize that uh, some things that we now don't think of as technology, like reading, writing, and books, were heavy duty, major technological innovations that changed the world, basically. So there's always been technology. It's just not, it's maybe not made out of aluminum, but it's or titanium, and it maybe doesn't have keys and screens. But it's been 5,000 years of technology, really. So it's always been there, and there's always been a way that that technology has been used to express grief, like a poem that is first delivered orally, but then eventually is delivered in writing on a scroll, and then eventually a book, and now eventually a movie. So I don't think that technology has separated us from those very powerful emotions. Um, it has certainly changed the way it is expressed and distributed and delivered from an artist, let's say, to an audience. That, of course, has changed, but the basics, I think, are still the same.
And just the way Karsh is essentially constantly keeping track of his wife after she passed through the shrouds. He's such a fascinating character because on one hand, he is a businessman, a tech entrepreneur. This is his business. He exploits is might be a strong word, but he profits off people's grief and death. But in other ways, there's a romantic aspect to it, the way he is constantly enamored and using it to keep in track of his wife's passing.
He's You use what you've got, So if you're grieving and you're a poet, then you're going to write about your grief. If you're grieving and you're not a poet, but you have a lot of friends, you're going to spend a lot of time talking to your friends about your grief. For Karsh, it was natural for him as a high tech entrepreneur to funnel his expression of grief into what he knows and what he can create. And basically, I'm profiting from making this movie. I hope. You never know. I might lose money, but so in a way, I'm doing what Karsh is doing. I am creating something that is potentially profitable uh, from the death of my wife. It's in a sense the ability to sell this story of grief is a measure of of its potency and the fact that many people can relate to it rather than being some greedy, exploitive kind of uh, buccaneering pirate type raid on people's emotions.
You've mentioned, rehearsals are not a consistent thing you really do for your actors. So when, Vincent Cassel comes into sets, first day, you guys are starting to run through it. How much of that is truly transformed and altered from what you wrote and your preconceived notions of that character as to what Vincent brings as a performer?
It's all of a piece, really. It's the way I've developed my relationship with actors over the years. I mean, there's an infinite number of ways to be a director. And I would never say, I mean, for example, I had a dinner with Paul Schrader in Toronto not long ago, and he said to me, rehearsal is everything. And I said, well, for me, actually, rehearsal is nothing. But it's not for me to demean his method of working. He has found for him, it works best to do a lot of rehearsal with the actors before it goes to shoot. And for me, I found that it doesn't work. It doesn't add anything, and it's better to let the actors be spontaneous and show me what their instinct tells them is the right way to say these lines of dialogue because they now understand the character that they're supposed to play. If for some reason they have gone down the wrong road for me, and I think they've made a mistake, then of course I would step in and say, listen, I think I think you've misunderstood what this character needs to be for this movie. And that happens very rarely, I have to tell you. Most experienced actors really, in a weird way, I trust their intuition better than they do. Uh, they need the sort of security blanket of rehearsals to feel that they're on the right track. And for me, I think it's possible to lose some spontaneity from that. So the first time that I actually hear the actors saying the dialogue, it's not in a rehearsal, in some rehearsal hall. It's actually on the set when we're blocking the scenes, seeing who's going to sit where, who's going to move to the door, and who's going to open the window, and while saying the lines of dialogue. That's the first time I hear the dialogue. And I don't want them to say it too often because I want it to stay fresh and sort of scary for them. And to me, that it helps it come alive.
In the Shrouds, Diane Kruger is playing multiple characters, entirely different representations of what they mean to Karsh. I was wondering, going through the process of talking about that and collaborating with Diana Kruger and, bringing those multiple essence of those sisters to life.
Well, basically, it's the script that was doing the directing. I mean, she understood immediately. I think she was worried because for whatever reason, in her experience, she expects that there will be lots of rehearsal, and it just means that the directors that she's worked with like to do that. But there are a lot of directors like Woody Allen, for example, who famously doesn't do any rehearsals. It's just a matter of the way the director works, and I have not ever really had a problem with sort of the actors being so lost because they weren't rehearsing. And as I say, she's such a good actress. She immediately it felt the difference between the two characters. Well, there are three characters
Yeah.
actually. One is sort of an avatar of her, and her tone was spot on right away. I mean, it's. I'm very lazy, really. I'd rather have the actor just do it than I'm not really lazy, but I do trust if you're working with non-professional actors, and that happens occasionally, that's a different story because they don't have the well-honed skill set, they don't have the chops and they need a lot of help. But for most professional actors, they can click into a role really quickly. And don't forget, some of them do. So I wouldn't ask Vincent or Diane to audition, but some of the other actors in the movie they would audition and then they would show me their version of. Now it's all done on the internet. But in the old days, you'd call them into your office and have them read the role, and you decide whether to cast them or not based on how good they were. Now it's all on the internet. Somebody sends you a video of them doing one or two scenes from your script, and you can see right away if they have the chops or not. You can see sometimes you ask them on the set. You say, "Remember what you did in your audition. That's great. You should just do that." So that's another way of directing through the audition, using the audition as the basis of a performance.
I find your style of humor in your films so unique. Did you ever feel it was going to get lost in translation? I know you mentioned something about the can audience possibly
Yeah,
not
yeah. Well,
clicking.
humor is a very delicate thing, really. I mean, it's so particular to the language that's being spoken, to the rhythms of the language, to the dialect of the language, and then the culture as well. And at the Cannes Film Festival, there's also the element of it's a big festival, it's glamorous, it's prestigious, and I think the audience would partly feel that it was disrespectful to laugh, especially at a movie that's about, on one level, is about grief. Whereas North American audiences get it right away and they get funny. So I think that's for me, I think all of my movies are funny. Not that's not the only thing that they are, but it's just like life. I can't imagine life without humor, and I can't really imagine a good movie coming from me anyway that's not also funny. It's just very natural for me to have characters who do and say funny things.
Technology and how that morphs into how we grieve is so apparent in the film. I want to talk about how it ties into Howard Shore's score, which I would love to know what were you specifically asking of Howard when it came to the Shrouds?
Yeah. We didn't talk a lot about the Shrouds. For one thing, he knew my wife who died uh, from all her life, basically. He understood what the basis of the movie was. And sometimes we developed a kind of telepathy early on because it's very difficult to talk about music. It's very difficult to have a very specific conversation that's only a conversation. What works better is if the composer shows you something, does a sort of a simple version of a theme or a tone or some instruments, and and then you talk about why that works or why that doesn't work. And also, you always do what's called a spotting session. The two of you look at a movie together, and you say, I don't think there should be music here, or I think there should be music here. Howard has always been a composer who's quite willing to say, I don't think there should be music here. He doesn't feel like he must cover everything with his music. Um, so the music has to do something that's worthwhile. And long ago, we decided that one of the things we really never liked about movie music was when it emphasizes something that's already on the screen. So that if it's a scary scene, scary music. If it's a romantic scene, romantic music. And we say, if the scene is strong, you don't need that music. It's only if you're insecure about, does the audience get it that this is a romantic scene? I better try and make it happen by putting, or is it a sad scene? It's not sad enough without the music. What if, though, the music is doing something in addition to the scene? It's actually adding another level of discourse to the scene. That's what excites us most, is that the music is becoming almost like another character in the movie. And and we didn't have to have that conversation anymore because we had it in the past, and we understand that that's how we work together. I don't think it's how he works with every director. They're different. Peter Jackson likes to have music all over every part of the movie, including over the dialogue, and that's something that I want the dialogue to be the music when it's there. So it's a different approach that we have, and Howard's capable of doing all of those things. And so we didn't really talk a lot about how to approach this. It was basically Howard saying, okay, we've decided where the music should go. Let me show you some ideas I have. I would have clips of it. Now it's great with digital and the internet. He can send me a clip of a scene with his music, with a simple synthesized version of his music. And then we can say, this works up until here, but I think it's past its sell by date there. It should disappear at this point. We can talk about it very specifically rather than in abstract terms, which in speaking about music is pretty tricky because it's hard to know if you're both talking about the same thing, really.
Death has always been apparent in your films. I don't think it's ever been as profound or as resonant as it has been in the Shrouds. Of course, with your own personal feelings being imbued into the film, I feel like a lot of people like Scorsese or Schrader, a lot of their work has been incredibly ruminative. Filmmakers of your generation are approaching film as this might be the last one. Do you now approach your work as this might be it? And if that's it, then this is truly everything that embodies me? Or do you not afford yourself the luxury of thinking like that and you're just on to the next, I'm going until I'm going?
No, after my wife died, I wasn't sure I would make any more movies, but that was an emotional thing, not an
Mhm.
artistic decision. Um, and you also think, I mean, making movies is stressful. It takes a lot out of you. And in fact, ironically enough, uh, promoting your movie after you've made it is
Yeah.
more stressful than making the movie. Not
Mhm.
you, but but so you have that thought, and you also part of it is, will I have the stamina to do it, because it takes physical stamina. Will I have the will to do it? Do I really want to do this? Because it takes incredible force of will to make things happen every day. Every day, you're forcing it by your just the sense of your willpower. Um, and then you, to me, it wouldn't really make much sense to say, this movie is going to sum up everything I know about life. I mean, that, you I don't think that's a doable project, frankly. I think that would be doomed to failure. But to make a good movie is difficult enough. So I do think about those things. And it's only right now, I'm 81 years old. I think only now that I'm thinking, no, I really would like to make another movie. But I don't feel that it has to be the ultimate film of my career that sums up everything, or something big like that. I think it's just business as usual. You're making another movie which is examining your understanding of the universe as humans experience it, and with some humor and some insights and maybe a little bit of sci-fi invention, that kind of thing.
Well, David, this has been an honor, and I think I could speak for everyone who watches films and loves films that another one, as many as you can make, as many as you want to make, we will always be there for. David Cronenberg, thank you so much for your time. This has been an honor and a pleasure.
That's very sweet of you. Thank you very much. Thanks.